Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes. Kuntres Heichaltzu. This shiur is for refua shleima for Yeshعיה, Zosיא, Ben Chana, Rivka. Should have a full refua shleima. Also, just something that I forgot to say last time. So about 10 years ago, I learned Kuntres Heichaltzu. I was learning something with a friend of mine. We learn every day. And basically, when it came to this section, if I remember correctly, it was this section. So I'm learning, and it's like, what's going on? I didn't understand why we're doing all this. Why he suddenly goes to the whole city shtashlus and all these things. So I asked him. We were like discussing it, and I was like, what's the varte? And he was like, stum. That's just like whatever. And he said he had a friend that his father was like a big buck in Chassidus, and he asked me about his own. He's like, yeah, stop, whatever. And it bothered me a lot because at that point I started to understand Chassidus a little bit. Not that I understood everything, but I understood there was more to it. And I realized if there's something here, like there must be something to it. And so we discussed why, essentially the reason why it's there is because it's coming to show us, it's coming to teach us the concept of what does it mean, Achdas Hashem? What does it mean, Havaye? Because until now we've been talking about, focusing very much on the Hischalkus of Kifas Midjan. So now we're discussing to understand what does it mean, the unity. What does unity mean? How do we see it? Yeah, continuing on page 142. So we're talking about the level of Elikim, is Havaye and Elikim. That Havaye is, we haven't really talked about, but Elikim, we're talking about how God is in the world, but in all the details. And all details we have, and we said it's 4 elements, not 4 elements, there's 4 categories. There's inanimate, like rocks, there's animate, like trees and stuff. And you have animal, and then you have the medaber, the speakers, is us. And everything is in those categories, the subcategories, infinitely. Everyone is different. Every rock is different. You have the simplest of rocks to the most precious stones that are worth millions. You have plants. You have mushrooms to leaves to everything you can think of, and also animals. There's all types of animals, also humans. As much as we all think we're very similar, but we're all very different. All these differences, and this is all Shem Helikim. So too would create, and then we also talked about angels. There's also within angels that there's not physical bodies, but there are some type of like space, but it's not really. It's a spiritual thing, but angels are also very different, and even more, they're even more so different than us. Even though we're separated, it's not just the fact that we have separate creations in this world, that in creation in the world everything is different and it looks different, but it's also the life force that's brought into them. It's the life force that's within each created being that we see, and even angels, the chayus that is given to it to exist is different. Every creation has life force that God is investing into it, make it exist, and that life force is very specific to that being. This is also the difference in names everything has. Everything has a name. That the name, like it says in shiur of Tanya, that the name of something represents the life force of it. And that's why it says, when 10 utterances the world is created, those 10 utterances are sort of the building blocks of creation of the world. Just like Hashem speaks, just like we speak, so to speak, it's it's not it's not real, but it's a way of us understanding. Similarly, Hashem speaks, and the world and these things are created. Hashem says, "Evan," and the stone is created, and the stone is keeping being recreated. So this way, Hashem is constantly speaking these words into existence. And that's he's saying that's the name. So the name in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew in the holy language, that name that the thing has shows on its on the life force that it has. Yeah. He says over there in the footnote, every entity's name reflects its inner life force. The gam balachayim, also animals, avgam b'min echad b'fratim nimtzayim shabai, and even individual species within each level. Min ha'aryeh, like the lion, or yashar, or the ox. They all, the name lion shows on the life force. The name ox shows on the life force. Vadai, in Hebrew, of course. Vadai, yesh l'chol echad ve'echad tzeruf miyuchad ha'machayos. And every individual, one of them, for sure, in itself, it has a life force specific for them. Yeah, exactly. Like it says here in the footnote, God created the world through speech via the 10 utterances of creation. Beginning, let there be light. In the human realm, we relate to entities outside of ourselves through speech. So there is nothing outside of God. However, speech is used as an analogy for creation, because it is through such speech that he brings into being a world that feels separate and distinct from him. Yeah, and that's just like we speak. Difference is we speak, and the speaker is outside of us, whereas God, nothing is outside of God. But the marshal, the parable of speech works well. And so just like he speaks and creates something outside, so too when God speaks, so it creates a world feeling separate from him. The letters of these utterances convey the life force for every entity they bring into being. And these letters that Hashem speaks creates these life force. Although every particular entity is not mentioned in these 10 utterances, so you're going to say, but 1 second, there's only 10 utterances and there's millions of, billions of things. So how they all fit in. So, and this is all brought down from Sha'ar Yechud. Although every particular entity is not mentioned in these 10 utterances, through a unique mystic pattern, the letters of these utterances go through permutations until the letters are configured into the name of a given entity in the holy tongue. The name of any creative being is the means through which it is brought into being and granted vitality. That name that it has. And even though in 10 utterances, only 10 utterances, there's not millions of names, but there's, there's ways of doing it, that everything fits inside. And that's what gives a life force to everyone. So the reason why we exist is because of Hashem speaking us into existence. But it's a little different by a yid, by the neshama. That's why he says in Parak Beis of Tanya that that Hashem blew into me. It's not just speech, but it's blowing. Just like when you speak, it's a very, very easy. We can speak all day. Whereas to blow, like blow a balloon, takes a lot of effort. Our neshama, us, the yid, the neshama of a yid, Hashem blew into us, blew into the nostrils, the neshama, and that neshama is coming from a much deeper place. That's the side point. The Hashem hu achayus. So the name we're saying here is the name is the life force of it. I know Hashem, the combination of letters that make up the name, then bringing this creation, this created being into existence and constantly happening. It says in the Torah that Adam gave names to all the animals. How is he able to do this? Because he could see the spiritual makeup, and so he understood from that what names they needed. Yeah. Because he knew this also their life. He knew how they were created, which is this combination of letters that gives them life. So he knew what they were, so he was able to call them. He saw the source of their name. Went elsewhere. But all this that we're saying, and this is an amazing concept. Think about it. That's how you are created, and that's how the whole world is existence, from these names that will create, that Hashem says. So to speak, Hashem is constantly speaking. And all this creates things, but all this comes from Shem Elikim. Like Yadua Elikim hu bechinas olam hadibur. And like it's known that Elikim is the world of speech, like we're talking about here. He says here, like in the Nifuna, that God's name is Shem Elikim. I mean, that Elikim is identified with Malchus. Malchus is identified with speech. And Malchus, and this whole thing is creation. It's creation in itself. The world that we see is all coming from Shem Elokim. That's why it's called the city of our God, of Elokeinu, from Elokim. Like a city in cities with all this division. I explained elsewhere. Rebbe, I'd say Rufim, the Oisios, the Adibur, the Shem Elokim, and all these different letter combinations that's coming from Shem Elokim. Heim, Rebbe, Akoiches Elokim, Amahavim, Machayim, Mibani Vram. This is all the Koiches Elokim, the godly power that's being put into it that make this division. Is the division of divided separate things, not division like midjan chas v'shalom, which is just separating us. But this is sort of separating the sea that we have. There's different things. Shehem mechalkim zemizeh mechulakim zemizeh mitzad hischalkus achayus, and that's why we see everything that's very different. Shehem atzeiruv. This is all these letter combinations. Everyone has a specific defined entity that gives it its life. But all this that we've explained until now is all Shem Elokim. And now we're talking about, let's say, Shem Havaye, which is what we're talking about, this thing of unity. One. Hashem is one. Havaye is one. Which is a level above this separation, because like we see here, the world is not really start off separated. It's all coming from the same place, but the words that create it make that feeling of separateness. Whereas Havaya is before that separation. The davka of Shem Elokim, shehu makam haya hamahava es anivraim bevoil, specifically Shem Elokim, which is the source of making creation, this feeling of a created world. Hashem created with Elokim, within the level of Elokim. That's what creates the world, a feeling of separateness. Which is the feeling of, the way Chandler is interesting. The name is the activating force is present within the world that is brought it into being. It's meaning the world recognizes that this is how it is. Shayach Sham Bechinas Ischalkus Atzerufim Ishavos V'Havios Achyoisam. So in the world, in created worlds, then you feel this connection, that all these letters that come into being that make you feel this creation. That's all puts it on this lower level of Shem Elokim. Ava Shem Havaye She'eno Begeder Makom Elamais, where Shem Havaye, which is not the source for worlds. It's not the source of separation. Because you do like it's known the Mishem Havaye lo haya actually is havos nivraim purpose. From level Shem Havaye, it's so united with God, it has this unity. It can't create separateness like this. Ki'im al yedei Shem Elokim dafka, specifically Shem Elokim v'lazois, and therefore Hashem Havaye hu lamayl mechanis chalkus. Havaye is in a level above separation. It can't create separate, distinct things. And this is the oneness of Havaye Echad. Hashem is one. This is the oneness within everything. Now you could also just think about it, that we're saying clip of Midjan went against this. So and this is sort of what the parallel. We'll do the Kitzim, and we'll bring back this a little bit. Kitzim, Hanivraim de Lamata, the Chalshikein Lamaila, the creations below, and even more the creations above, meaning like the angels, Rebbe Chalkus, all have myriads of separation. Mitzad Mekaimam, Mitzad Madrigasam, based off their level and based off where they come from. The Nimshach, Mishem Elokim, it all comes from Shem Elokim. Shem Havaye Lamal Mischalkus. Shem Havaye is higher than Mischalkus. So the whole world and the creation and the fact that we exist and the life force is being put into us to keep us in existence is all coming from Shem Elokim. Shem Havaye is way above this. And now to appreciate that Sinas Chinam, which is coming from Midjan, and what this Midjan is doing, is fighting against something that's way above the reality of the world even. The fact that we exist as separate entities, Klipos Midjan goes above that. It reaches level Shem Havaye, which is not even the source of the world. Because if the world was created with this level of Havaye, we would cease to exist. We couldn't exist in that way because we wouldn't feel separated in any way. We'd be total oneness with God constantly. And this is the level of shleima vaya. And this is what happens, unfortunately, Klippus Midjan, this is what Midjan is fighting against. This is the contrast of these two levels. And this is sort of the point of learning this. What he's trying to teach you, he's trying to make you appreciate things. So now, when you understand all this, and really, this is what his bonus. The bonus is to think about these things, is to be able to go in your head and repeat this in your own words. And that's why his bonus takes some time, because this is, we learned this for 2-3 days. But to know it well takes, a few more days. And then when you know it well, you can go over it in your head. And before you daven, you think about this. That the whole world's creation, what does it mean the world is created? What does it mean God's creating this little shleima elikim? But really, there's also a level of shleima vaya. And the more we learn this, as we go through this, the more we'll have in our toolbox, so to speak, stuff to be able to think about. And when we think about this, this is how, and this is sort of the point of Chabad Chassidus, to think about these ideas, and these ideas should think about it enough that we should connect with it, should even produce a feeling. And then when you come to do a mitzvah, you come to daven, you have to do his bonus beforehand. What is the purpose of his bonus? Is to appreciate this. And you appreciate all this, and you think about it, you appreciate it. Then when you come to do the mitzvah, it's a whole different experience. You do a mitzvah just because I daven every day, so I'll daven again. Whereas here, you think about it before you're davening. What does it mean I'm davening? Who am I davening to? What's God? And look at this world is created. It's just a level of Shem Elikim of this is just an aspect of God's level of Elikim. Really, there's a level of God way above this. And this will really help us understand all these details. It's like a picture. There's the picture can start off with 3-4 colors. And as we learn this and as you understand it, the picture becomes clearer and clearer, and you can add more details and more little nuances to it, and makes it look really good. To be continued.